So you've been grinding for 3 or 6 months by now. Maybe you've made a few $100, but here's what you haven't seen. A single booked appointment, a single official sale, the actual money coming in, and that silence is what's killing you. So how do you keep going when there's literally no reason for you to continue, right? You should just quit. Well, I spent 2 years before I got my own real win. And what I learned in that time is what I believe is how to survive. And not just survive, but find a way to thrive even when there's not really a reason to do so. Keep watching to the end of this video so you don't quit. And subscribe right now. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. So you get more videos like this that can help you stay in business and make money. So here's what I used to do. I'd launch ads and I'd click run with just zero experience. Then I'd wait, and then the only thing I'd measure is, did I get a sale? And as you might be imagining, I didn't. What I thought from that was, I didn't get a sale, what I'm doing doesn't work, I should quit. That's the very logical process. But no, it's wrong. Because in fact, doing it that way is measuring the wrong result. And that's because the first lesson I learned during those 2 years about how to keep working when you don't get paid is that you need to redefine your results. At least that's what I had to do. Because I should have been asking, okay, how many clicks am I getting on my ads? How many visitors am I getting? How many add to carts am I getting? How many checkout visitors am I getting? And then how many actual sales? But instead, I thought I could just look at A all the way to Z at the end, instead of A to B to C to D to E. And for you right now, whether you're at month 3 or 6 or a year and you still haven't gotten the results you wanted, this might be you. You might be sitting there thinking, I'm not getting any appointments, I'm not getting any sales. Is this ever going to work? And now I obviously can't promise you that it will ever work, but if you want this to succeed, you have to be delusional. So if we kind of take that as the assumption for a second, then what you need to start out with is redefine the result as not the final thing, but what are the steps along the way? Now, if you do want a completely free roadmap that shows you what those steps will be for you specifically, then go to the top pinned link in the description and you can get a free hour of coaching with me. We'll look at your entire situation and I'll help you identify exactly what you need to fix, how to do it, and how to measure if you're making progress. Now, the second lesson, which to be honest with you is probably the most difficult one in this age of instant gratification, but it's commit to the process and reset expectations. You might listen to this and go, David, you didn't just fucking say that. I've heard that 1,000 times, but I did. And you know why I did that? Because it's the truth. You know, the multiple attempts I had at starting a business before, whether that was like buying a few custom designed t-shirts, which were horrible, but also with buying speakers, trying to rent them out, the charity app, and even with the clothing I tried to sell, DSCPLN Apparel, before the Discipline Group, I thought that I could succeed in a few months. And because of that, one, I never fully invested myself into making any of them succeed. And so you could even say I didn't really fully get started. But secondly, I thought I had to be massively successful in just a few months, or otherwise I would be a failure. And I put this huge amount of pressure, being worried about what other people would think of me for trying and failing. Yeah, that was what I was afraid of. When in reality, a lot of them didn't give a shit. And, you know, the other half, let's say, they did care, but they did care in a positive way and they were really supportive. So what am I trying to say with that? Well, I had to reset my expectation. And I had to realize that if I ever wanted that big financial independence, fulfillment goal from the work, it was not going to be a month, 3 month, half year thing. It was going to be a decade thing. And so I chose that this might not work now. It might not work in half a year. It might not even work in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but it damn will work in 10 years. I know it will. I believe in my capabilities to learn quickly enough to seek out help that I can make it work in 10 years. And so that was what I committed to. Nothing else. Just being willing to learn and willing to learn fast enough. And the kind of the crazy or insane part in doing so was that once I made that commitment, it just lifted so much of that burden off of my shoulders because I was no longer scared to make stupid tries or things that seemed crazy or daring or daunting, which had held me back before, because now it was okay if I failed. And doing so for like a while and a few years down the road, I can tell you now that you can't plan your way out of failing. That's not a secret. You might think that you can have the perfect idea, or at least I did, but there's no such thing or example. The first group of clients I started working with were 3 people, and I just knew that I wanted to help them start a business. One of them quit because he had other priorities. Another one actually succeeded. It took a while. And the other one also took a while, but only made a few $100. Not what I had hoped for. Second round of clients, I did a terrible job at qualifying. All of them quit. Now the third round, I'd learned a lot in this meantime. The third round of clients I took on, I set a specific goal. Okay, it's going to be $1,000 in 90 days. And among those people, more than 50% succeeded. Now, many of them did a lot better than just $1,000, but the point was I learned, and I learned between each of those tries, and I improved, and I took those learnings and I implemented them. And so every time I did better. And it was also after that I built that track record, I actually got the experience and the trust that I was finally able to also get the win myself, which was completely fair, because who wants to buy from someone who hasn't done what they talk about? So for you, you feel stuck, I get it, but you are not stuck. The only place where you can be stuck is if your horizon, your expectation for the timeline is off. You think it has to be now. And also if you're taking so big bets that you're putting everything on the line without, great odds at actually succeeding within that small deadline that you've set up. So my suggestion to you is, how can you look at this on a 5-year timeline? I think Hormozi says something absolutely amazing. He says the long run or the long term is the shortcut, which is absolutely true and doesn't mean you can't do something fast, but it means if you set the expectation for the results to be a long time out in the future, then chances are you won't be disappointed. And if you aren't disappointed, you won't be as disheartened, and you'll probably want to keep going. Now, the third lesson is something that kind of hit home for me. It was something that was a tough pill for me to swallow, because I, for a long time, prided myself on just being busy, having a lot to do. But the issue was I wasn't prioritizing. So far, I've mentioned redefining your results, focusing on the micro wins, committing to a much longer horizon. But the third thing, that's the final action that really is going to make a big difference in the work that you do, is ruthless prioritization. Why do I say that? And why do you kind of feel like you've already heard that before? Maybe you go, of course you should prioritize. If you're not careful, you end up as me. I was super busy. Every day I felt productive. I filled out my calendar, my schedule. I was getting shit done. That's how I felt. And I was super proud of working long hours. But in reality, when I was doing my website tweaks, when I was recording videos, when I was reworking my funnel, changing design for the old clothing, when I was doing all of this shit, I thought I was being super productive and working on the right things. But I wasn't. You know why I wasn't? Because none of that, to the right degree, meaning it wasn't efficient enough for the time I put into it, not enough leverage, I didn't get any customers or get paid for any of that work. Then per definition, for starting a business, it was a waste of time. And it was a really tough pill for me to swallow, because I was proud of how much I was working. But when I had that second round of clients, as I mentioned earlier, who all quit because I had done a poor job of qualifying them, and I was trying to work with them, and we weren't really making the right amount of progress. A couple of things were wrong back then. But also, I wasn't focused enough on the qualifying part, yes, but also on working on the right things at the right time. Meaning that these people didn't see progress fast enough, and I get it. Like, if I'd been in that situation and I was super busy with other stuff at the same time, I might not have held out. So I understand, no blame. Now, I had to then acknowledge and recognize that this could not go on. Otherwise, this would just happen over and over again. And so when I reflected on what had happened, I realized that with those clients, and part of the reason that other work with clients before that had taken so long compared to the time frame I'd initially set, was that I wasn't focused hard enough on doing the right things at the right time. And for you going, okay, but then what is the right things at the right time? Well, it's probably if you're right in the beginning stages of your startup or your business, getting customers. If you're not spending the majority and almost all of your time reaching out to people, creating content, creating ads, running ads, testing things to get more customers or clients, you're likely wasting your time. Because if you do the advertising and you get the clients and you get paid, it is 1,000 times easier to afford to do all the little shit work that you think makes you productive. I can tell you, when you're not getting any visitors, you can change your website however much you want, and it's not going to make a fucking difference. It sucks to hear that, but it's true. If you're listening to this going, well, I'm not entirely sure what to do, how much to do it, how to do it, when to do it, for how long to do it, then I get it. Especially if you're new, it can be super overwhelming. But I would highly encourage you to use the top pinned link or the first link in the description. Sign up for a free hour of coaching. I will help you for wherever you are at with whatever you're working on to make sure you have an actual plan for how to get paid, what to do, for how long to do it, how to see if things are going wrong, and how to fix it. Okay? We'll do all of that together. You just have to follow that plan. Sound fair enough? I would hope so. On the other hand, if you're like, I don't ever want to talk with you, David, that's completely fair. A good rule of thumb, to be honest with you, is that if you have a full-time job or a part-time job, then you probably have anywhere between 1 and 6 hours per day that you can allocate towards building this business. And I would say like 80 to 90% of your time, depending on how much time you have, should be spent on advertising as the first thing. Because if you don't, then sure, you can tweak your designs, you can tweak your website, you can make the videos, but if you don't put everything into doing each and one of those things right as your advertising channel, then you're not going to have any traffic and attention. No attention means no conversations, no conversations, no pitching, no sales, no sales, no money. And now you're just still at a hobby. That's probably what hurts the most. Other people, even you, have to recognize that, is this just a hobby or can it be more? Of course it can, but you have to make it so. Once I actually looked at step-by-step progress, once I changed my horizon to the decade thing, and once I actually worked on the right things, not just for myself and getting my clients, but with each and every one of the clients I worked with, they started progressing a lot faster. And it was that foundation, that trust, that experience that then ultimately led me to get paid myself, which was a super emotional moment for me because of how long, I've been doing free work and building that trust and that foundation and that experience, the proof for anyone to want to invest in me. So, that was a huge win, and it's going to be the same for you. And it's probably not that far off if you start doing the right things. So what can I say? Well, what I can say, subscribe, because you likely aren't. I think it's like 95% of something of you who are watching aren't subscribed. So make sure you subscribe. And besides that, let me know if you hated this video. Check out the link if you want free help. Other than that, I hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for your time. I'll catch you next week. Stay disciplined.